We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast on this magical mystery tour that we call Ole Miss Fandom. I'm your host, Stephen Willis from the palatial Central Florida studios. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm back after a day off. Yesterday I was unable to do, but I can confirm on my MRI scan that they were able to find a brain. So I do have that going for me as well. But thank you very much for that. Before we get started, I do want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. That is Travel and Cruise World. And basically, they're 1-800, let's see, what's their phone number at the moment? Kind of move that off, so give me just a second. They're 1-800-330-7461. Again, that is 1-800-330-7461. What we are setting up, and we're working on a promo as well, but it's a local avenue for you whenever you visit Central Florida, whenever you take your vacation. On all this uncertainty going on in the world, you'd like to have somebody on the ground here that can tell you what's going on. Whether you're going to Disney, whether you're going to Tampa, whether you're going to Canaveral, the whole 9 yards in Central Florida, they'll get you covered. Call Scott, tell him we sent you. Again, that number is 1-800-330-7461, 1-800-330-7461. 461. So we got a lot of stuff to get to today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why Ole Miss should be in favor of the expansion and how this could benefit them. There's some short-sighted takes out there, but this is a way to look at the big picture of that. And also, you can look at our new graphics out over to the right. Just fantastic. It's just next leveling the POMcast, and it was a lot of fun to make, a lot of fun to do. I love graphics. I'm a graphics nerd. So it should be a lot of fun. So we did that as well. But we're going to talk about expansion today. We're going to update you on the expansion with what's going on, because new news has come out since we talked last. So we're going to do all that. But before we get started, I do want to tell you, you can follow the podcast at The Stephen Willis or at The Rebel Walk. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast, POMcast, or The Rebel Walk. Hit follow, hit like if you don't mind. That'll help us out a little bit. We're on YouTube at positivelyolemiss. Hit the bell, hit subscribe. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And also you can catch us on Twitch at positivelyolemiss, all one word. We actually broke 10 top followers on Twitch. That's pretty cool. If audio is more your thing, you can catch us on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Pandora. If you don't mind, leave us a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want to. Just please leave us a 5-star review if you have a chance to do that. That'll help us out when people are searching us during the day or whenever they're looking for the best Ole Miss podcast out there. They might find this one, so that's what we're rooting for. So, pretty exciting time. It's a pretty exciting time in the SEC. And the news broke this morning that Oklahoma and Texas looking to come in, and all this news that you can see over there is the previous one. But they added to it this negotiation, and the back channel talk started in January. So that's 7 months of silence. That is absolutely amazing to me in this era when people just love to talk. It's just amazing that silence like that can even exist. And then it finally broke when it did. And they're talking now that, a few weeks away. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that. But it's already obviously well down the road. Now you can look at it, the short-term view of that is Oklahoma and Texas coming into the conference, and then what are you going to do in the conference? They're like, the SEC is already hard enough, and I just don't buy that argument. I just don't buy that at all. They're talking about recruiting. Those guys recruited really well regardless. Those are people we were having to deal with regardless. So, yeah, I'm not really going to go down that road. I know that an air raid offense has a little bit different type offensive player than the offense we run. The defenses aren't really going to match up. I mean, whenever people worry about recruiting, it is the people that look at the idea that one football player is out there and all these rankings are going down the road. And you know how we are with systems, and there's 50 different rankings of 50 different players out there, and it's all based on what you need and what you're doing and what they can bring to the table. So that's just an idea of the recruiting side that we thought of it. But I like the Texas and Oklahoma expansion. I'm absolutely in favor of that. First of all, it moves Alabama and Auburn out of our division because they're going to go to 2. They're not going to do a pod system. They're not going to get too crazy with it. You could have a situation where you have 7 conference games in the division, and 2 rotating opponents on the other side every 4 years. You go all the way through them. And it just seems like a good fit. All the rivalries fit if you go to the 2-division format. You have, Alabama and Tennessee all of a sudden the same division. They're not a problem for the cross division. Auburn and Georgia is connected. Auburn and Florida is back. That saves the Iron Bowl because they go together. Tennessee and Vandy is all together. Ole Miss and State is together. Ole Miss and LSU is together. And there's the old school Big 12 guys that come together. They have a little bit of history and rivalry as well. So I like the idea with the rivalries being kept. Now, they're talking about Bedlam. I am assuming that if they come over, they are going to say goodbye to every one of their former ties. Just like Texas A&M did. Whenever they came over, they said goodbye to Texas. Just like Missouri did when they came over. People forget about that, but they said goodbye to Kansas, which is a mighty big rivalry between those 2 schools. I mean, that goes back to that's a harsh rivalry. That goes back to the Civil War, actually, the Missouri-Kansas stuff. There's hard feelings there. So the fact that they let it go makes me think they're going to let it go when they come here. So removing Alabama and Auburn out of the division and replacing them with Texas and Oklahoma means you are bringing in a lesser Alabama, so the top isn't near as high as where it could be, and honestly a lesser Auburn. Auburn's always pretty good, always special. Texas has a chance to just fall over, and they've struggled for 10 years. So it brings down the level of the West. The West has always been difficult, but you still have LSU, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, who's trying to get there, but they're nowhere near consistent. They're nowhere near consistent, and I will not treat them as consistent at this point because they definitely need to show me. And you bring Missouri over from the East to the West, which is a place they always needed to be, to pair them up with Arkansas as a divisional game, and all the rivalries are set, all the games are set. The divisions on both sides become more or less an equal event. That's what's amazing here. The championship game will be more eventful than what you're thinking of right now. And people worried about the competition between Oklahoma and Texas coming in and all that. These are people that are always going to have some semblance of that view. Now, it could be a little bit different. It could be a little bit tougher, and it's going to go both sides. Yes, at the beginning, I do believe the East would then become the toughest division. I do believe Alabama, Florida, and Georgia would be the premier three over the three in the West at that point. But that's all cyclical. Everybody seems to forget in the 90s and the early 2000s when the SEC West was a crapshoot and teams were going to the SEC championship game with a 7-5 record. Alabama was struggling with Mike Dubose and Dennis Franchione and those guys. So it all changes. It's all cyclical. It goes back and forth. You can't long-term make a decision like this based off of the immediacy of what's happening right now because it all goes up and down. Alabama is destined to come down a tick when Nick Saban leaves. There's really no getting around that. You just can't help but drop a little bit. But that division lineup will benefit Ole Miss. It absolutely will benefit Ole Miss, and the fact that we're in the process of building now. I don't think we're going to contend this year, but I think we're going to be very, very improved and very dangerous this year. And in doing so, next year could be the year that it comes out. Well, next year could be the year that the divisions switch over. Then all of a sudden, the big dogs coming in are people that have never done it before. Good football teams. Like I said, football is going to translate. Texas is going to recruit well with Sarkisian. Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma is going to recruit well. They already do. They're good football teams. They're not going to wilt under the SEC. But it's not a situation where the rest of the teams are going to wilt because they're coming in. So it's going to be a rising tide lifts all boats type situation. And it's going to be very good for Ole Miss. Now, the other side of the coin is the Longhorn Network. Everybody thinks of the Longhorn Network. Well, the SEC is not going to allow a Longhorn Network to exist. So what happens to that infrastructure that's already in place? My thought, my idea, just my opinion, is an SEC West channel to go along with an SEC East channel to where you essentially have an SEC 1 and an SEC 2 broadcasting games every weekend. And you can take those with an overarching streaming service over the top, real similar to what we have now. And it's going to be a position to where you can just print money. Honestly, you can just print money. They're already at the point where they're making like $20 million a year on the SEC network. Add a second one to that, they're going to make about the same amount of money. You'll be able to put all those into one pot, and you're able to distribute just from your own networks $30 to $40 million outside of normal TV contracts. We're talking eventually getting to $100 million a year. This is important, and this is what people need to realize. I know I say that phrase a lot, but in this case, people actually need to pay attention to this, because after COVID and the lockdowns came in, the gate could not be counted on to prop teams up. So the SEC and its member institutions who are very interested about that are interested in getting away from a primary of a gate. Now, we still have it. We're still going to charge people to come into games. All that's going to happen. But if you get to an $80 million a year per school contract for TV rights, if you get to $100 million a year, all of a sudden that makes the gate very minuscule. They're still selling out, but you're looking at budgets of SEC schools in the $150 million to $200 million range. I mean, some ludicrous amount of money. It is going to be, if this moves over, the college football equivalent. I saw it on Twitter of Globo Gym, but it's going to be the Death Star. And I don't mean that in any way negative as far as the resistance or anything Star Wars related. It's just going to be an all-powerful thing, and that is going to dominate and control college football. This is a power play. People need to realize that. This is a power play by the SEC. They made this when they can set the table and get the 16 teams of a super conference that they want. All of a sudden, everybody else becomes a tier less. And the big decisions that get made are the big hitters in the SEC in the boardroom, and they can send their agenda to the front instead of playing reaction ball to some D3 school in Ohio like they are now, or even to the other G5, or maybe to the other four Power 5 conferences. You can kind of control things and build a power structure your way, and then you can farm that out to college football, because the wave of expansion during all of this is going to be interesting to follow. Now, I'm just thankful that Ole Miss has a seat at the table and has a chance to enter into the premier super conference in college sports. But this is going to be big for other sports too. This isn't just football. You got Texas, it's always a premier baseball program. Oklahoma is always a premier softball program. Both of them flash in basketball. This has a chance to be really, really big. And people worry about the competition. That's going to take care of itself. A rising tide lifts all ships. Everybody's going to worry from time to time about where they fit. But you can't just make a decision within the last 5 years or the next 5 years on a decision like this. This is a 25-year decision. This is a 30-year decision. And this is a decision that will make the SEC and college sports relevant in the age of NIL and name, image, and likeness and the one-time transfer rule. This is a preeminent power play. It is absolutely fantastic. I think I saw something yesterday. Maybe it was the 247 guy, Josh Peay, talking. This is basically the similarity of putting Greg Sankey on the same level of Jeff Bezos, and Ole Miss becoming the 400-pound gorilla behemoth. They were already ahead. Now you're not even going to be able to see them. And this is a big move. I like the idea of multiple networks. I like the idea of the overarching streaming service that covers all those sports. I like the divisional shakeup. It actually will balance out a little bit the East and the West a little bit, because it's all cyclical. It's going to go back and forth. LSU's still in the West. Texas A&M still in the West. Ole Miss still in the West. Arkansas still in the West. Bring Missouri over, who's been to the Eastern Championship game twice. That's more than Ole Miss and one more than State. It is going to be a nice and balanced 16-team conference. It really is. Now, what I am amazed about, and I don't think we're going to take a break today, I think I'm just going to keep talking, is that they were able to keep this quiet. That they were able to not leak this whenever they started talking to the SEC in January. It was one of those things like, how did you spend your COVID year? And Texas and Oklahoma figured out how to get out. So I understand people do not like the Texas fans rub people the wrong way, the same way that A&M fans rub people the wrong way. I understand that people are going to say that Missouri does not belong. I understand they're going to say the same thing about Oklahoma, that they do not belong, that Texas does not belong, and that's cutting off your nose to spite your face if you are against this move. Now, one thing I want to talk about and what makes this move palatable for Ole Miss, because this move would be a problem, an absolute problem, if the playoffs stayed where it was. But if you have an 8-team division where all you have to do is make it in the top 2 of each division to have a shot to get to the playoff, because that's what we're looking at this point. Because I think this thing might go to 12, and after expansion, it might go to 16 after these super conferences kind of flesh themselves out. They have a chance to get in the tournament, which is something they didn't before. Let's understand that in the world that we currently live in with the 4-team playoff, Ole Miss did not really have a chance to get in it. Everyone's like, Ole Miss can win the SEC and get it. Yes, but how often? When was the last time Ole Miss won the SEC? So we need to finagle the rules and the way that we do things and the way that we find things to make it more equitable for Ole Miss. Everything needs to be about what's best for Ole Miss, not narratives in the media. You're already seeing narratives from national media members writing, maybe Oklahoma can chart their own way, trying to basically blow up this deal because they realize what it means. The SEC will become the second most powerful sports league in the United States. Not football league, sports league. But right behind the NFL. They'll be above the NBA. They'll be above Major League Baseball. They'll be above the NHL. They'll be above MLS on influence and TV money and all that. We're talking about a money printing machine. But with Texas and Texas A&M, and this may not have been planned. This may not have been planned. But if you get both of those fan bases, you've got all of the state of Texas. And just one of those fan base, you just have a regional fraction of the state of Texas because there's so many schools in that state. But if you get Texas and A&M, all of a sudden it truly expands out westward. And all of a sudden a very populous state, I think the second most populous in the union, is an SEC fully footprinted network. And I don't think that needs to be ignored. I don't think that with an SEC West network, like I said, all the infrastructure's in place already. Everything to do an SEC network West network is already in place. All you have to do is brand it, SEC W2 or SEC West or whatever, the SEC West network. That infrastructure's in place. All you have to do is rebrand the Longhorn Network. That's real easy. As you can see from the graphics package, I can rebrand. And you can use all of that they've already invested in and put it to use in a division with only 8 teams. Now, right now with the SEC network, we're doing on 14 teams. So there's less of a place for teams to go around. But if there are 2 and they do the Longhorn Network like I think they might do it, all of a sudden there's 8 teams in that division. And do a couple of SEC West specific shows. The East can do a couple of SEC East specific shows. Send SEC Now to both. Send the games to both. And just put them up to where you can just enjoy all the games. And beef up your baseball coverage. Beef up your basketball coverage. I mean, the SEC, Disney is going to own all of our rights. So they can put us wherever they want to put us. But this is an avenue where you can actually do that. Also, as part of doing it, Disney's probably going to ask for some money. Put 2 games on SEC Network Plus or ESPN Plus, and that's something they can look forward to. And I'm just really excited about this. A lot of people fear change, any type of change, anything that is different. They are nervous about because what if it doesn't come out to the expectation that they're used to? Well, I'm not generally a person like that. I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm a very change-centric person. If the rules are set up in a way that hurts Ole Miss, we need to work to change the system that's going on, not just change Ole Miss. Build Ole Miss up, but there's avenues, when you get all the best players you want it to, there's going to be avenues that are going to keep them down, as you saw from the 5-year NCAA colonoscopy that we went through. So with the rules changing, the name, image, and likeness, the one-time transfer fee, the expanded playoff, all of a sudden this expansion becomes palatable. It becomes something you can do. You're looking at a division that's probably a little bit lower at the top than what you are now. Road trips to Austin, Norman, down to College Station that we're already going. We're already doing that. The recruiting wars, we're already in that state. The SEC is already in Texas. because of Texas A&M. So it's not going to bring more people, it's not going to make it more crowded because that's also their recruiting hotbed as well. It's a truly exciting time. It truly is. And to see the SEC with the foresight, because after the Ole Miss colonoscopy, we all had doubts about Greg Sankey as a commissioner. Was he up to the Mike Slive level of a commissioner? And if he pulls this off, once it gets signed, I think that will absolutely be. I mean, Roy Kramer brought in Arkansas, South Carolina, and the championship game. Mike Slive brought in Missouri and Texas A&M. This one, Greg Sankey would bring in Texas and Oklahoma. And while on paper there's a brand recognition there, but it's still an expansion for each commissioner. So that's pretty neat as well. But I was worried about Greg Sankey after that colonoscopy and the way that things got handled. But he's doing a pretty good job. And the fact, I still can't get over the fact that they had 6 months of secret negotiations and nothing got out. Nothing got out. Now, before I let you out of here, I'll give you a little bit of time back today. I do want to tell you, be careful over the next couple of weeks, the sources. Whenever the media is putting out some sort of source about what's going on, be careful about what's being said. It's not been vetted. Vet sources upon sources and figure out what's going on. Everybody is doing their own research. Everybody is telling their own story. Everybody's trying to win, which, as we know, that can be problematic for the media. So just be careful with what's being said. Pay attention to the actions of UT and OU. Like if they ask the SEC next week to join, if they don't renew their media rights, pay attention to stuff like that. Other than that, just read the rumors on Twitter from the reporters and take them with a grain of salt. It might be true, it might not be true. Part of it might be true, and part of it might not be true. We're not going to know until the end. But pay attention to UT and OU's actions. Pay attention to the SEC's actions. And, of course, enjoy this. This is going to be fun because if this happens and the SEC gets OU in Texas, we get to sit back with our feet up and watch all of the wave of reorganization around college football happening. So enjoy that. Enjoy that. It doesn't come around very often. I'm going to stop right there and give you a couple minutes back today. And I do want to thank everybody for being patient with me yesterday. I was out getting my MRI. I hope you enjoyed the new graphics package today. And we'll be back Monday with more POMcast. There's probably not going to be anything over the weekend. We're probably going to take the weekend off getting ready. That's going to be available. But thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you Monday. Hotty toddy.